What's going on, everybody? I'm SS14, and today we're going to be talking about and showing you how to play the new Swedish tank. So these were released a day or two ago, I think, in patch 9.17. Alright, now, first of all, the best thing about these Swedish tanks is just they're like a Centurion at low tiers. They have excellent gun depression, excellent alpha damage. It's kind of like an auto-loading Centurion. They're able to get from point A to point B fairly quickly, but they're more intended for battlefield agility. Because in real life, these tanks were mainly built in Sweden for a defensive purpose to protect them from the Germans during the World Wars and things like that. Now, they also all have fantastic gun depression, except really for the tier 1. Now, armor 14 millimeters, that's not bad actually, but the gun is fantastic on the first one, 30 to 50 standard shell damage. Now, if we go and we take a look at this Swedish tech tree, we'll see that there are only 2 lines so far. But I can see that there's this big space right here, meaning there may actually be another Swedish medium tank line. Another odd thing, well, it's not overly odd, but it's not as odd as the Americans where you go up a light tank line and get to T-57 heavy. But you can see that it's a medium tank line all the way up until tier 8, and then you get the Email 1, which looks fantastic. 180 millimeters turret armor. It's an auto-loading heavy tank that can put the Frenchies to shame. Now, it's good, but the heavy tanks are pretty much main battle tanks, so that's why they threw them in with the whatever you call them, the medium tanks. Now, all the medium tanks, they might look a bit odd, but I can assure you, I played these on the test server. They are fantastic tanks. They've got not necessarily the most high penetration, but they have very fantastic, pretty fast firing and high alpha guns. Or they have autoloaders. But the real cream de crop, or whatever the French say, is the tier 10 tank destroyer, the STRV-103B. Now, these things have a very new feature world text, which is unique to these. It's called Siege Mode. You press the X key, and you can, because the gun on this thing doesn't traverse side to side or up and down, and the whole tank moves. I'll go into that a bit later, but I'm just going to show you about the low tiers, because I see a lot of these guys running around and not being able to do very well in them. And it's kind of a shame, because these are very, very nice tanks. And I like to see people doing well, so I have some competition to fight with. Now, there is one other little thing. When you log into World Tanks or create a new account this season, you get the L60 for free. It's actually a very, very good little tank, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it. First game I played in at 700 damage. Pretty easy. I mean, I died pretty fast, but it's a very fantastic tank. Can't really take on Panzer IIs from the front, but get around the side, it'll eat them right up. Now I'm going to hop into a game with the STRV FM21, the tier 1, and I'll show you how to get ahead on the little XP, because if you can get the tier 1 high enough, then you can immediately research the first 2 tanks. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Now we're in a game. Now, as you can see, there are a lot of Swedish tanks around, and now you're going to have to be fighting their Swedish tanks. Luckily, you have the penetration and the alpha damage to be able to deal with them, and any other tier 1. This is actually pretty much a seal clubbing tank at tier 1. Now, what I like to do, I don't actually have XVM installed and up and running for my new account, is I'd like to look at the tanks on the enemy team and assess which ones I will be able to take out. And when you're in an STRV, just look at all of them, and they're good. Now, this tank, I think, actually looks pretty cool. It looks like a bit of a Santa's sleigh with a turret and armor and a gun. Now, it's not the fastest thing down here. It actually looks more like a boot. Excellent little thing to do up here. I almost did, actually. Gun's actually pretty accurate. Snuck a shot in there. We sneak a shot through the window. Not gonna try it. Don't want to waste a shell there. actually pack a repair kit in this tank, because most people don't. You're gonna have to be able to. You have to learn to punish your enemies in this thing. Now, since it is very long and the turret is rear mounted, you have to be careful so that you don't just try and poke out around a corner and accidentally just only give them the front of your tank, which incidentally is actually where the engine is. You have to be able to get out fast enough. See, now what this guy up here has done is he's popped out. I've taken a flanking shot by a medium one. I rushed the shot there. These things actually do have pretty accurate guns. They're not German guns, but you can do snapshots in these pretty well. Alright, so as you can see, this tank is pretty good for pushing around. Now, you do have to be very careful with all the Swedish tanks, as they are pretty much all lightly armed, except the heavy tanks. This is what happens. First person who gets the shot off against an enemy Swedish tank is the one who wins. Now right now I do have a damaged engine and a driver, but see, he got the first shot off, meaning I died first. When you're both on low health in Swedish tanks and you both have the same tank and the same gun, it's very important to always try and get the first shot off. Now if you can't, then you've lost your tank, but what are you gonna do? They got the first shot off and they were a bit more lucky. Now as you can see, other tanks like electric tractors and stuff will do pretty well against these low-tier Swedish tanks. But low-tier Swedish tanks are, as you can see, the highest alpha tanks at low tier. Alright, I'm going to show you in the garage the strengths and weaknesses of the other. Alright, so we did lose the last battle, but not down to any mistakes, really, on my part or by the tank. It's just, there's a lot of enemies, and you're going to die. You can't win them all. Right, folks? But, in the garage, we're going to take a look all the way up to Tier 4 today. I'm not going to play games, I just want to play a game in the Tier 1, because I've been seeing a lot of people running around in them who have no idea what they're doing. Now, usually you could free experience your way to Tier 2. I played 2 games in the STRV there, and I've played 1 in each of these. Haven't won either one. There's a lot of high tier players running around. I saw 3 Panzer IIJs and a BTSV out today, which is seal clubbing at its finest. I've also picked up this thing. Just a little side note: H35, Hotchkiss H35, the Tier 2 for one of the Tier 2s for the French is heavily armored and can bounce shots for pretty much everyone, including the new Swedes. Now, with these tanks, you have to be pretty careful. Now, the stock STRV M/38, the gun is pretty bad. I mean, it's not the worst. It's Tier 2 with 31 pen and 14 damage. Now, it's not the best, but it's not the worst here. Now, if we look at the second gun, it's fantastic. It fires 22.6 rounds per minute, has only 906 average damage per minute compared to the first tank's 1,190. But at low tiers, DPM is not really a factor that you need to pay attention to until tier 7 plus, tier 6 somewhat. But this tank has 55 penetration and 40 average damage, which is really an improvement just of this regular gun here on the first one. Now the second gun is worse, but so the tier 2 here, it starts getting into the groove of things. Once you get to tier 3, once again it's a light tag, you start to get pretty good guns. Stock gun is the same best gun from the tier 2, which can rip apart tier 3s pretty well. Now this tank also gets a new 37mm with 40 average damage, same as the last one, but 78 penetration and more rounds per minute. It also, if you mount the tracks, gets a better turret with 50mm of armor, and at tier 3, I have to tell you, that's pretty good. You can bounce quite a few shots. Now, all these tanks are very mobile. They're very, not the fastest, but they will get to their top speed, and they will stick at that top speed. Now, you can also see they also all have pretty damn good guns. See, with this tank, if we get the top engine on it, has the weight limit 18 tons. With the fully upgraded tank, It weighs 18.3 tons. Not the best, but it has 17.69 horsepower per ton and 324 horsepower in total, which is pretty good. Now, this is pretty similar here for the 45 km/h top speed. I believe that it sticks all the way up to tier 6, if I'm... Yep. It's pretty much the same, and they pretty much all have the same mobility, which is that they can... actually, incidentally, the tier 6 has one of the worst turrets. Has worse turret than the tier 4. But they all have a specific kind of mobility, which is the same as the Centurions, as I said earlier in the video. They're not meant to get from point A to point B fast enough, but they're supposed to be able to outmaneuver their enemies. And honestly, they can do it. And this thing will stick at tops. It's 45 km/h top speed. On flat ground, pretty marshy ground, it'll be at 40. Going up a hill, it'll be like 39, 40, sometimes even 44 if it's not overly steep. But they are fantastic tanks. But these things, I think, and listen to me here, now these don't have the gun mantlets of the Centurions. The gun mantlets aren't half bad, but the turrets are. But I think these things are the perfect brand new Ridgeline warriors to take over from the old Centurion tanks. And just listen to me for that. Now, these things are able to just go from 0 to 45 kilometers an hour in like 5 seconds. Not even. But that's with bog standard crew, bog standard engine on this thing. Now, if you just get right up to the top of the hill in like 2 seconds, you just snap off your shot with your extremely accurate gun, penetrate their lower hull, or wherever weak spot you're firing at, and go down a bit more. Now, you can actually see that these things are a bit based off the Centurion tanks that the Swedish had used, but they needed a lighter vehicle, so what they did was they made these, the STRV line. Now, those are all fantastic tanks, and as I explained, they're pretty much Centurions at low tier, and they are fantastic Ridgeline warriors. Now, let's take a look at the up to tier 5 in the tank destroyers. Now, low tier, tier 2, not really a big pertinence. The gun, 55 pen, 40 damage, that's the best gun. It actually has an autoloader for the first one. I'm not sure if the second one isn't. No, it's not. Now, tier 3, you get the IKV-72, which actually looks quite a bit like a Martyr. So if we equip the best tracks, its standard gun has 88 penetration, 12 rounds per minute, and 110 damage. Second one has 12.5 rounds per minute, 97 penetration, and 110 damage. That's tier 3. That's fantastic. That can take on tier 5s. Now, if we go up to the tier 4, you get this thing, which looks a bit like artillery. And it does actually, I believe, get the gun from artillery, a 105 Con M/44. This thing is like a Hetzer, pretty much, but not as well armored, I don't think. Nope, 50 millimeters. No, it's still not as well armored as a Hetzer. But it does get a pretty good regular tank destroyer gun with 107 pen, 13 rounds per minute, and 110 damage. Pretty good. Now, all these things need to be played as very specific sniping tanks. You need to stay back, because these things have no armor whatsoever. It's not like the British mainline, like the AT-15 and stuff, where they've just got insane armor. They've got a 228 millimeters of armor. No, it doesn't work like that. And for these guys, like if you look at the respective tier, right, the UDS 43. It only has 20 millimeters of armor everywhere. Now, it is heavily sloped, and this thing is extremely low profile, but it just doesn't have that little bit that you would get on other tanks. Now, at tier 5, you get something that looks a bit like an SU-100Y, or not an SU-100Y, an SU-100 with a little bit of a cancerous lump at the front. Now, this thing, it's a bit odd. It gets two 105 millimeter guns. The first one with 102 pen and 5 rounds per minute, and the second one with 320 average damage per minute. 320 average damage alpha, not DPM. I'm sorry for my little mistake there. Second one is 5.41 rounds per minute with the average penetration of 120 and an average damage of 300. Now, it's a bit of a little odd tank, but it is actually based off of artillery, so you can't really fault them for that. Now, how you want to play the tank destroyers is sitting back behind the line, picking at their weak spots with your guns, which are, I believe, right now the most accurate guns in World of Tanks. They're more accurate than the Germans. So you just have to enjoy that extreme accuracy. And even when siege mode unlocks it, I don't know. I really don't know what tier it unlocks. You'll have to look that up. Now, I hope this video has been helpful to some of you guys. I hope it's opened your eyes to Swedish tanks. Hope it's given you some tips. If it has, please like the video, comment down below if I missed anything, and I will add it in maybe an annotation to the video, or I'll make a second part if I need to. Now, this video is made to help people, and I don't need the negativity in the comments, because if you're just going to be negative, go to 4chan. But if you want to tell me how to improve my channel, feel free. I'm here to help. And if anybody has any specific questions with Swedish tanks, feel free to send me an email, or just leave it in the comments and I will get back to you. I read pretty much all the comments, and I hope you guys all have a nice day, and I hope you decide to go and ammo rack some enemies. Later, chaps.